Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Byington, and in this video, we're going to be talking about Book 18 from Homer's Iliad. Now, the whole big deal about Book 18 is that it involves the description of Achilles' shield. That's a very famous moment from the Iliad. Well, the whole reason Achilles needs this shield, the whole reason the shield comes along is because his armor has been taken. So his friend Patroclus, who is described in the Iliad as his dearest friend, so practically like a brother to him, um, he wants to help Achilles in fighting against the Trojans. Now, if you remember back in book one, because Achilles has been arguing with Agamemnon, Achilles basically says, whatever, I'm not going to help the Greeks fight against the Trojans anymore. And he even goes as far as asking his immortal mother, Thetis, to go ask Zeus, the king of the gods, to aid the Trojans, give the Greeks a hard time, so they will regret losing Achilles' help in the war. Well, Patroclus has, of course, seen how Achilles has not been helping the Greeks, but Patroclus wants Achilles to be impressed with him. He's sort of like more of like the little brother figure in this friendship. So while Achilles is not with his armor, Patroclus takes Achilles' armor, puts it on, the breastplate, the helmet, all of the gear, and goes into battle. Now, the Trojans recognize the armor and they believe that it is Achilles. And Hector, the warrior of warriors on the Trojan side, believes that he is fighting Achilles, has no idea that it's Patroclus. And so he ends up killing Patroclus. It has a graphic description in which Hector's spear goes up through his neck, through his jaw. And so then once he's dead and they strip the armor from him and wanting to raid the armor to disgrace him because they still think it's Achilles, right? Then they realize it's not Achilles. They realize it's Patroclus, and everyone knows there is going to be quite a wrath from Achilles now that they have killed his best friend. So, book 18 begins with Achilles receiving that news. You have a character, Antilochus, who is the one delivering this message to Achilles. In lines roughly 25 through 40 of book 18, Achilles expresses his grief by doing things like taking the dirt. You have different words, different language used in different translations, of course, taking the dirt, the filth on the ground, taking it and rubbing it on himself. And he's taking his hair and pulling out his hair. He has a very vivid expression of grief. And then while he is wailing and crying, his immortal mother, Thetis, hears him crying and comes to him immediately. Just like in book one, when Achilles was crying in anger because of the argument he had had with Agamemnon. Now, it's not that Thetis is a sort of helicopter parent, but it has more to do with her always showing up, has more to do with the fact of how worried she is about his mortality. When she is hearing him wail like this, the worst comes to mind. She probably suspects that he is dying because she knows the prophecy that he will have a short life as a warrior, a short mortal life. He will, of course, live in a different type of mortality after death as a hero, as a legend, because, like I said in book one, here we are still talking about Achilles in the 21st century. So Thetis shows up, Achilles explains what has happened. And of course, she wants him to be able to go fight against the Trojans now, too, because Achilles wants revenge against Hector for killing his best friend. Thetis says, no, you must wait until I get new armor for you. So Thetis goes to the blacksmithing god Hephaestus, and he will make new gear for Achilles. It is specifically a shield. Now, right before that happens, you have Iris and Athena who come down to Achilles, and he is shrouded in a cloud of gold. So he is protected from the Trojans. So he's like right on the sidelines of the battlefield. And he lets out this just very frightening scream. And Athena screams with him to make it even more terrifying. And because the Trojans are distracted by that, the text says that even the horses stopped and reared back because it was so horrifying to hear this big war cry. While the Trojans are distracted, the Greeks are able to steal Patroclus's body back from them. This is a sort of important detail. This happens about lines 387 through 414 in book 18. The ritual practices of giving proper burial rites to Patroclus. Proper burial rites are absolutely imperative in their world. For us, in modern day, when we have funerals, of course, it is to recognize, to celebrate the life, as they are usually called. Instead of calling them funerals now, we usually call them a celebration of life, right? Of course, it is that, but it has a little more to do also with closure for the loved ones, the friends and family of the person who has passed away. In their time, it's not so much about the closure of the people who are still living, the people who have survived the deceased. In their time, in the ancient world, these burial rites are imperative so the deceased can pass on to their place in the underworld. Otherwise, they're just kind of stuck in limbo, a type of purgatory. They're not going anywhere. So you have that example, like I said, in those lines 387 through 414. Now, the shield finally begins at about line 558 in this book, and you have extensive lines of describing what the shield looks like. So I'm going to go on to your shield. The whole center of it that you want to remember is that it has the universe on it. This is your slide with the description of all the details on like each circle, everything encircling the center of the shield. It starts with the universe. So we can't have Earth, we can't have our solar system, we can't have the Milky Way galaxy until we first have a universe for all of this to exist. So we have the universe, the sun, the stars, the moon. There are constellations in the image here that you recognize the signs of the zodiac, right? So Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, Virgo, Leo, Cancer, Gemini, so all the way around. So all of this is all the stuff in the sky, all of the universe is there in the center. Now around all of that, you have, I'm coming back here, you have two cities, and there are different things going on. One is having a wedding, but also there's a distraction from the wedding where two men are fighting over the instance of someone being murdered, a kinsman being murdered. Then in the other city, they're at war, they're dealing with a battle. Then you have a field being plowed. It specifies that it's the third time it is being plowed. That has a little more to do with the cycles of life. Now, the events going on in the two cities, those are sort of the give and take of life, the positive and the negative, all the microcosm of society. And the field being plowed, though, has more to do with nature. So if you think about what that looks like, if it's its third time, then we are going down one row And as the plow turns, it's turning into a zigzag. It goes back across, down, and then back across, and it keeps going. Um, that is a design you see a similar design, I should say, in some Greek artwork, like on vases and such. It's called Greek stairs. And a little further back, since this is a little more to do with Troy, you would have other names assigned to that, of course. But that has to do with like the procession of time and nature, right? The seasons keep turning, so time keeps going and you can't stop it. Then we have a king's estate and we have a harvest. There is a harvest, something related to the nature and the seasons passing. Like I said, it's about time that you cannot stop. We have a vineyard where people are collecting grapes. Again, it's a type of harvest. And then we have a scene of a herd of cattle, but they're being attacked by lions. Herdsmen are trying to save them from the lions. You have another scene of agriculture, and you have a scene of dancing, and in the very end, sorry, here on the very end in this image, we have the great ocean stream. So all around all this life, we go from the sky to the events, the human events of life, and then the ocean just surrounding all of that. Now, this shield, having this shield, it could fill the gap left by Patroclus's death, but it could also be sort of a commentary on Patroclus's death. The shield has that give and take of life. It's commenting on that thing, but the shield itself would be used to defend one's mortality. So this scene of everything that makes up life would be used and held up to fend off swords and spears and such, so one can preserve their mortality. Now, one more thing about the shield. This is considered an instance of ekphrasis that I list here on your slide. Ekphrasis is highly descriptive poetry. It's describing a fictional work of art usually. So in the ancient world, the practice of ekphrasis, where it originates actually, it is a little more specific, like just this definition that I have on your screen. But now people practice it in a little more ambiguous forms. So it could be a description of like a scene from a movie, something that takes this one thing and blows it up into a whole nother narrative, just like the extensive description of the shield in this book. So that is all of the content for this book, covering Achilles' grief over the loss of Patroclus and the description of his shield.